All right. Hello, everybody. I see a bunch of people starting to uh, slowly trickle in. Welcome to Lunch and Learn today. I'm Jeremy. I'll be leading you. I've not been on Lunch and Learn in quite some time, but I am back and ready to hopefully do my best to help anyone in whatever they need some assistance in. So, um, just as a quick little note, got a bunch of QR codes here, a bunch of great things to check out. We've got our Decisions YouTube channel. We put a lot of our training content, new videos, things about specific steps, things about other, useful topics and things. Great place to check that out. It's also where we put all our lunch and learns. We've got the Solutions Marketplace. Great place to, find just good access on various types of things and decisions. Um, uh, different applications and things that you can try out, maybe get some inspiration from, or just something that's useful for you. So definitely check that out. We also have our DocBot, our like AI that allows us to help find information or how to do things in decisions. So decision specific questions, great place to check things out. And then we also, for any of those going through our regular training process, we do have a stand up um, during the Eastern Standard time zone from 2 to 3. That's relatively new. It's been going for a couple weeks now, but just want to make sure that we announce that as well for those that are specifically going through training projects. But otherwise, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A. And I'd be happy to start taking a look at some things for us today and, see what it is that we can help with. In whatever ways possible. So please feel free to start posting any questions you have so that we can take a look. Oh, you submitted a question. Okay, let me take a quick look at that. Let me get that open while you see if anyone else submits any other questions. Helmet, I'm having trouble finding your question. If you don't mind just posting it in the chat, because I can't see it right now. I'd be happy to discuss that first. I just can't find it for some reason. Yeah, that works too. I'll give you the opportunity to talk. You can speak it out loud. That'll work.
Yeah, a little bit easier. I do a lot of typing already.
Yeah.
Um, so I have a form, and on that form we have some radio buttons,
Okay.
and in like HTML web pages and stuff, when you create radio buttons, you can basically have them show one thing for the label, and then you click on it, and then you have an something else entirely as a value sent to whatever functionality you have on the back end, right? And so I was trying to accomplish something similar with the radio buttons here, where let's say you have a radio button yes and no, right? But when they choose yes, I want it to on the back end have a different value than yes, and if they choose no, then same thing. I want on the back end to have it pass along a different value for no. Is this possible in decisions?
But nothing changed visually, right? Just
Yeah, so it
purely
only
on the
shows
back.
yes and no on the radio button, but when I choose yes, I get a value that's different than yes, and then when I choose no, I get a value that's different from no, to pass along in the flow. I checked out the configurations and stuff, and there was nothing super obvious, so just wondering.
Yeah, I believe it's regardless of the type, it's going to be whatever type you have the radio buttons like list of things set to be.
Right. So ours is
Um,
static, so it's just a list of multiple
yeah,
items.
right. to go with like the yes and no thing that you had mentioned. Great. Um, my thought here, I don't think naturally there is, right? It's static. This is just going to be the strings
Sure.
of whatever these items are. Um, but really what you could do with it, it'll be maybe a little bit annoying, but if you want to achieve that process, you can still definitely do it with active form flows, just because when you have an active form flow, um, you have the ability to trigger it based off of your selection change on these buttons, and you
Hmm.
can read the response on the buttons. Um,
And
and
change the
since,
response probably.
yeah, I don't necessarily know if you could change the string. That would be something I don't think could be directly done if the string doesn't exist already in your static list. But what could be done is you could have, let me close this real quick. You could always do, and this is where it may be like potentially, you know, not optimal, I guess, but like have some other value um in, somewhere on your form that's set to not be visible. Um,
Right.
and and just, I don't know if anyone on the call has like a much better thought than this because I think this is the only thing that pops to my head immediately. Um, right, if you have your static value, you could have some kind of not visible form control, even if it's just like small and hidden in a corner or whatever, some unobtrusive location. Like as long as this exists, this text box is now an output
Right.
in my form here. So then what I could do is I could have check run a rule, or depending on how many things you might, need to do like a string match or something to check the
Right.
input of your thing. And then you could use like the set control value step to then say based on whatever the result is, if it's yes, I want it to output milk, and if it's no, I want it to output juice,
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that. That's the thing that comes to my mind, unless someone has a much better idea. Um,
I don't know if it's better per se, but just a different approach might be having the specified output, but then having a truth table immediately afterward. That
Yeah.
would be able to convert that. You could make it external too, so you could update it dynamically for an external database, so you don't have to go in and edit the flow when you want different values each time.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I just was yeah, this was something I'd considered. I'd also considered something with like a data value pair. Do you think that could be leveraged here, or maybe not so much? Like, could you get a list of data value pairs, and it's a value and a label, and you show the labels and you pass along the values. I thought maybe that would be possible, but um, I'm not sure.
Yeah, data value pair should be configurable because if you're passing them in dynamically, you would just pick which field in the value pair to display
Right,
onto your form. That should be possible to be able to do that and then have the other one matched, passed out.
right, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just wanted to know if it was not, immediately available to me in some way that was obvious and I wasn't seeing it. So thank you very much.
mhm. And thanks for hopping in there, Greg. Um, Jeremy McNeil also added, I assume this is in reference to what we were talking about. Suggested adding logic in the flow that could contain the form that contains the form to do that. So something in the flow that would, I guess you could, not necessarily, um, I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be on the form itself, right? You could have logic just in your flow that
Right.
takes the output of the form, just kind of do everything right after, like
Yeah, I
kind of
had
like what Greg
considered that.
mentioned. I assume that's maybe what he's referring to. Um, Kind of similar to what Greg mentioned a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Thank you very much.
Mhm. All right. We've got another question. This one's from Anonymous. So if you want to speak up, you'll have to raise your hand or let me know who you are if you want to add anything to this, but I can go ahead and just start to look at it. The question is, can you put a calendar on a page? I tried through a report, but just want a basic calendar view like you could have on Windows, making a landing page and would like to have a calendar on the landing page. My immediate thought is no. I have been asked similar questions before, and looked a little bit into the options for doing this. I know you could obviously, with a lot of work, kind of build your own version of that, but I don't think there's a direct. Uh, there's definitely, or definitely not even a don't think. There's definitely not like a direct, calendar, um, page control. I don't know if anyone else has specifically worked with that. Um, but from my experience and from what I've seen, I have not seen at least a working calendar other than, things like putting a calendar like image or something in here, but not necessarily in the actual like toolbox directly. Um, there are like a lot of ways that you could incorporate different elements and things like that. If you could build it in a form and you have like a flow run part or something that would display the form. Um, like you said, you tried it in a report, but I don't think there's um anything. I'd have to reach out to see if anyone else with a lot more like building experience and decisions has actually built or done something with that. That definitely sounds like it'd be a little bit more complex if that is something that someone's done. I was just gonna try to open that up very quick just to demonstrate. Yeah, I don't think there's any like, obviously not like if you search for calendar or anything, there's an option. Obviously the date pickers and stuff have a calendar, so if you're doing some kind of date picker, a calendar would appear, but that's not necessarily like a full functioning calendar. It's just to choose a specific date. So I don't think that would quite achieve on decisions. Why are we doing this to me now? I don't think that would quite achieve what you're looking for. Um, assuming that's what you want. So unless you have something else to expand or ask about what you've tried here, I don't know if I have anything, unfortunately, have anything to add without having to ask someone and maybe being able to reach out. I could definitely post something um, in our Teams in a Teams channel and see if anyone has a response. But I would you just have to let me know who you are so I could let you know if I hear a response back. Okay. Yeah, if you want me to send any reply if I do find any more information, just let me know your email. If you want to post that in the chat for the calendar related question. And then I can either come back to it or hopefully get a response and send you a note like a follow-up with more information if I can find anything. Otherwise, I will move on for now. All right. VT has a question. Had a legacy of version 8 project that was converted to a version 9 project and then pushed through repo to another environment. Set up permissions, can use and can view. Nobody can see the project in the new environment unless they are admins. Um, okay, so I guess just to clarify, um, the admins are the designers. They're definitely designers that are trying to access this as well. VT.
Yes, so when I set up permissions for designers to be able to can use, can view, and can edit, it doesn't matter. So designers not they don't see anything basically.
Hmm.
Only admins can see stuff in your environment. I'm not sure if I'm missing something.
Right, right. Interesting. I fortunately don't have that easy to test. At least from what my experience, I haven't actually seen that. I know I had at one point done that when I had upgraded to version 9, but I didn't have any issues uh, converting my 8s to V9 when I had originally done that. Um, a couple, I guess just a couple general thoughts that could be possible um, is making sure you'd have to check, you might want to check like a couple of like the initial like folders and things to make sure because it's possible if there's any kind of permission inheritance that was disabled on any of the folders for whatever reason, that could be blocking you. Like if even though maybe you added on your main project, maybe the folder that's inside that project had permission inheritance disabled and it's not allowing the new permissions to get pushed through.
So
Is one thought.
by default they are enabled, right? So
Yeah,
I
they
didn't
should be
change that.
enabled.
Yeah, I didn't change that. In on my project, if I go to like a permission page, it shows like all accounts, and it shows that they have permissions.
Hmm,
So those accounts still was not able to see the project at all
interesting.
until I made them admins.
Oh, my decisions are struggling this morning or afternoon. Um, no, that seems very odd. That doesn't sound like something I've seen directly. Like if this will load for me, I could make sure. Obviously, so you've got the permissions on the entire project, right? But nothing is visible. Have you
Yeah,
tried even doing like a public folder just to see if the public folders have become visible and not necessarily the project?
the point is because I have converted that from legacy from version 8. So basically, it doesn't have anything in public.
Right,
So it would be new structure plus folder structure from the legacy.
right, right. I'm just trying to think of like other ways that you could kind of maybe just make slight changes and check if there's any like overarching permissions issues or if maybe it's just the folder itself that got converted. Like my thought is, if you have like if you had a dashboard that's in, the folder that you had converted, um, and you just move it into the public folders folder, does that change? Right? Because
But
maybe if it's just something about the folder that they're living in from the move from versions. I'm just kind of thinking out loud of some, I don't know what could have happened
but
because that's at
the bigger
least where I think.
the bigger question is that if person was set to be a designer, that person should be able to see a project, right?
Yes, they should. I'm just kind of
And
saying like
uh,
in general
yeah,
because
and the person was like a designer on the system, but that person was not able to see a project at all until he was set as a admin.
right.
So that's weird.
Yeah, that's there's some kind of permission thing that's missing for some reason because they should see it.
I
I
mean,
mean, they should have access to the whole thing.
if you're a designer, you should be able to see everything except settings.
Right, right, right. Yeah, they should see all that stuff.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what kind of permissions do you have on the project. If you're designer on the system, you should be able to see all projects, right?
Yeah, there's not much I can show here or test for you on this. I think this is just unfortunately one of those things you're gonna have to reach out to support for. Um, it's very likely that there's just either some bug with the process of converting that I unfortunately have never seen because in my testing, I mean, back when I had originally upgraded to version 9, I did a lot of those version 8 projects that I um, did the whole legacy project, convert to version 9 project thing, and I had no issues with any of my designers or anything. Granted, I'm just like on a test, like I'm not doing necessarily anything that's like my development servers for a full production anything. But yeah, I think the support's probably going to be your best bet for this one, just because it seems if there's something that's not quite working and I can't exactly demonstrate or test it for you here, I'm not going to be much more help. I mean, at least by hearing you describe it, it sounds like you did everything right on trying to get the designers to view it. But if they can't for some reason, there's something else that hopefully the support team can help direct you towards.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Yeah, apologies. I couldn't be a little bit better on that one. All right. Got another question about data repeaters from James. So James, go right ahead. You can talk.
Hey guys, I may have asked this before, but it's been a while since I worked with him, and I was trying to do something over the weekend and couldn't get it to work right. And I don't know if this is just a function of data repeaters or if it's just me being ignorant about how they work. So I'm setting up a page with a form with a data repeater on it, and I need to pass like key values to that data repeater so that it will load the correct data. And I'm not able to figure out how the main form can pass data to the data repeater. Seems like a simple thing, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I could not get, like, let's say there's a key value on the main form that data repeater relies on to display the correct data in that repeater as a key
Mm-hmm.
value. How do I get that key value down to the data repeater? Just seemed like it was its own little entity and it didn't, there was no way to, you know, get data from the main form once you're in the repeater.
Yeah. So inside the data repeater, right?
Uh-huh.
You have to have like an expected input of some kind.
Okay, so
Um,
where
right.
are
So
you right? You're in the
I'm
repeater.
in the data repeater.
Okay. And that's form data input type.
So
Okay.
this is a requirement of data repeaters.
Yeah,
You need to
that's
be
the
able to
actual
tell it
form. That's the actual data that you're going to put on the repeater, right?
right.
Gotcha.
And so
All right.
then if you have that
Mm-hmm.
set, it's gonna let me close this.
Yeah. So in my example, I would want like that data set right there would require a key that's coming from the top form that's the repeater's on
Right.
in order to display that data correctly. And I'd like it as I change that key value on the top form that the data repeater automatically changes to reflect that.
Mm-hmm. Back into this. Data repeater. Actually save this so I don't lose that again. Okay. Make sure that works too. I feel like it might not have. I'm just gonna pick a case entity that I have in here just to as an example here. Okay. So you have your data repeater. You want data to go into the data repeater from this.
Yeah, I never understood. Well, and maybe I just haven't figured it out. But why the the form that the data repeater is on? Why that data is not accessible to the repeater? It is in a grid, but it's not in a repeater. I understand they probably function quite differently, but I still don't understand why that data can't be passed to the repeater. Because you couldn't use it in its active form flows or anything.
I don't know why this is struggling for me. There we go. Okay. Um, so, like in an active form flow, you can set if you want things to be right. Like if you go into the data repeater, you still have some of the items that you can set here, right? Like
Aren't those
it's
the items that are on the repeater?
yes. Isn't that what you said you wanted to? If not, I'm maybe I'm a
I
little confused on
want
what you're
data
looking for.
passed, like, let's say that data repeater, or I need data from the main form.
Right.
So is that available there? Am I not
Right. Well, so if this is like an active form flow, right? That would be inside my data repeater.
right?
So if I want to populate, I can populate something in the data repeater
Yes.
using set control value to set the value of, you know, an object in here. Oh, this is the form control, sorry, that I need to add. Um, I guess maybe you'd only be able to set like the full, like if you have this data repeater, right?
Right.
That set as the form control that you want to set the value on, or set like an object onto it, right? You can pick the item source from this, and let's say, uh, I, oh my gosh, I'm not used to this update with the flow data. Sorry. I can still have this come from anything from the form, right? Like so I'm setting the control value of the data repeater, and now all of my inputs that I want to actually add with my set control value step populated because of this form control that I chose. So then the item source that could be, the list of, in this case, it's a list of all of those case examples that I created, right? If I had that list somewhere on my form, I could, or I have it. If I have that list somewhere on my form, I could just grab it because in my active form flow, I have the ability to grab form data, which would be anything on my form.
That
So as
form
long as
data
you,
you're looking at there, that's from the top form.
yeah, because this is
Well,
inside my
that's what I
active form
wasn't
flow.
able to. Okay, maybe I was doing something wrong, but I wasn't able to get to the top form from within the data repeater. I don't know why
I'm
those
not in the
fields were.
data repeater anymore. Maybe that's where the
Yeah, I mean
disconnect is.
that. Yeah, see, that's the whole crux of it for me is once I'm in the repeater, I don't have access to the top form's data, and I
Um,
want it. I want to be able to access a field that's on the main form within the repeater. Yeah, here in an
I
active
see.
form flow.
So yeah, in the data repeater,
Mhm.
where you're going to be able to get your information from is from the input type that you set. and then it's going to be like a list of that input type that is able to go into your data repeater. And so you can set what that list is coming from on the outside. But yeah, within here, the only like input that you have is like
Right.
what this data is. You can't
Right.
actually like in this designer directly pull from something else because it is a completely different design. And
That's what I thought.
it's not necessarily linked directly with your original form because I could put this data repeater in 5 different forms and use it in 5 different ways with even if they all technically have the same like inputs.
So you have to do all your, like, I think another person commented here, you have to do all your calculations in the main flow, in the flow that contains the form.
Yes.
That's what Jeremy put here, which, yes, I do know that. But if I want to use any of that data in calculations, like in the active form flows of the repeater, I can't do that. I can't because I don't have access to it.
Yeah, I mean your active form flow inside the data repeater, you
Right.
would have to, you can technically reference the flow data inside this, which would be like the objects inside your thing. In this case, I just have a checkbox,
Right.
right?
But
But
that's the
each of
repeater
those,
itself.
yeah,
Right.
this is all the stuff inside the repeater. They would have to be in reference to whatever that type is
Right.
that you
Yeah.
set.
Yeah. And
And
that's what I was finding. And so the answer to the question is no, you don't have access to that. And the reason is because those repeaters are totally separate entities that
yeah,
can be called from something else. So in essence, what I'm trying to use them for, I would have to basically just use a data grid of some sort to do
Uh,
some of that.
a question. Can you test something? What if you don't have access to that and you just like you have here, just type in form data dot your variable name, just like that, but something that you don't have access to. So form data dot something. Yeah, testing. Is that a field on your main flow?
on
Main form?
my main
For
form it is, yes.
okay.
That's what I called something, I believe.
Yeah, so if you just leave it like that, would you have access to that?
I don't even think it saves if I don't have it. If I don't like select something, I don't think it'll keep it. Because I think
Yeah.
if you start typing it, you have to select something from the thing that drops down.
Yeah. Yeah, you
And so
do.
if it doesn't come out, if you don't have anything selected,
It's not.
even if I save and leave this, if I go back
Right.
into this, it's gonna reset to whatever it
Yeah.
is. So I can only
Yeah,
pick something that's on the form data itself that already exists.
Right.
I
can
can't pick
you
something that doesn't exist.
can you go back to your actual repeater form? Can you add a label and pick from data name and then type that form data?
Oh yeah, yeah, right. Like that.
Yeah, and can you test if that will actually pull that? I know it's gonna show you an error, but can you test if that will pull that data?
Yeah. I see what you mean.
No, it doesn't have to
Should let me.
be in the active
Oh no,
flow.
I know. I just wanted to see if I could grab it. I mean, it looks like it would be in here. Oh, that's just calling that.
On the main form, if you put something into this data, can you see if that will reflect on the data repeater?
You're saying if I did something with that here?
Mm-hmm.
Where is that field? I don't see it on there.
Well, this is just this field. I think it's just that right now. So they're saying like, let's do it. If I added this, dr test string. Let me go back and fix this. Oh, I put that all caps. Yeah, that should be that. So then what you're saying, so if I have the
Yeah.
name,
Can you add and remove buttons for
oh yeah,
repeater? Yes. So basically, if you input something into that text and then you add one repeater form, that should try to pull that information from the form.
and Grant and Smith, I see both your questions. We'll get to that in just a minute. Should be not much longer. If this doesn't work, we'll move on and get to your questions. So just sit tight for another minute or two, and we should get to those next. But I do see them. I did not forget about you guys. Doesn't look like it changes anything.
Okay. I think that answers my question. Then I'll have to figure out other ways to do what I want. Like I said, I can use data grids, but they don't offer the flexibility that a data repeater does.
James, you can always just rebuild the whole list of repeater things the way you want to and paste it back to the repeater control.
I'm not quite sure I'm following you there.
So whatever you change on the main form, anytime that you make a change, you just rebuild the whole list of repeaters.
I just changed the data that's going into the repeater, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That data
Yeah.
is just a list
Yeah,
of
you can do that and kind of narrow down what's actually displayed. I was talking more about if I have active form flows in the repeater that I need some of that data from the top form to use in those active form flows for different things. I don't have access to it.
right.
Right. Which that's a bummer, but at least I understand exactly. I understand the concept now, so I can figure other ways around it if I need to.
Okay. All right. We will move on then. to Grant's question. Grant's question is, can you have a navigate to folder on a page that is only visible to a particular group? For example, IT would only see navigate folder to their landing page. I saw there was a folder tree and navigate to folder button, but I'm not sure what to use. Um, can I just clarify real quick, Grant? Are you referring to um, like you already have a pre-built page, right? A page ready to go with whatever stuff you want on it. All right, let's just say this is it, and like 5 different people have access to it, but you want only one person to have access to this button on the page. Everyone else has access to the rest. Is that what you're referring to?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Unless, I mean, my quick answer is gonna be no. I don't think you can do an individual option on a page. At least I've never experienced that. I don't think you can do that. I guess you could make. Hmm,
Jeremy, I think you can just uncheck that visibility and say visible just
that's what I was actually just thinking about that. You talking about
from
this?
data. Yeah. So basically, you can have like is visible on the entity, and you can check. You can make a flow on that, but that's kind of complex on the page,
Yeah.
and you can also use JavaScript to do that, or you can use a flow to create a link. Like for example, if that's not navigate to a folder, but it's like a tile flow that creates a link to navigate. In that flow, you can check permissions if they can navigate there.
Yeah. So yeah, like normally, right, I can't just necessarily like look at that directly, but things like a flow do have the ability to look at like the active user or the current user or initiating user, and you could use that to look at the um like if someone were to run a flow or click a button that would start a flow, you could look at the active user or the initiating user and then navigate them to the proper folder. Um, that could be especially useful if you have these like 5 different groups. Um, uh, you have like 5 different groups or whatever, and if they all want a navigate option, but you want it to navigate to different places, that could simply just be a flow like VT mentioned, and you can have it direct them to a different URL or a different place depending on that. The other thing too, that you could do in addition, like again, it would be a little bit more complex doing it directly on a page to have a page control be like set to be visible or not visible. Um, not that it's completely not doable, it just gets more and more complex. The JavaScript, you also have the ability, you can add actions to things like this. If you have like an action added, right? Like that this edit is an example of an action that's created for you automatically. But like, you can create actions. I don't know if I have an easy example for it. I do.
Jeremy, the easier way would be run a flow part. So create like a flow with the form, and on the form use active flows to make that link visible or not, and just run that flow on the page.
Right. I don't think I have it in this. Oh, this isn't even built yet. Um, but no, anyway, so yes, you could. There's definitely a lot of different, I think, different ways you could do it. Obviously, you could have a flow run it if you wanted this like option to be visible for everybody and just change where it goes. Like VT mentioned, I don't know if you have any experience with flow run parts or anything like that, but it's a way to display a kind of like a way to display a form um, in this page. And so when you do it, if you have like a flow, I don't think I have, oh, I do have an example one that I could use. But basically how it works is it'll run a flow, and then you could have like your like a form on it. And the form could be like where what you're saying could be where that link gets generated. It could check the initiating user, generate the link to appear on the form. And obviously, if it's not the correct user, then it wouldn't appear and it would just be blank, or it would be, not there. And you can, organize what you want it to look like. So it kind of works like that. You could easily set this up. A flow run part is just a way to have like a form displayed if you want to do that. But your form could then have your link generated on it to redirect the user, and then you can check the you could have it check for the initiating user here, because all inputs, or if I'll just go in here just to demonstrate, but like all of that, you have your input to get your current user or initiating user details to check their groups if and see like whatever they are, and then you can have that link generated based on the groups if it's a different link depending on the different person. So there's I think a couple ways you can kind of play with it from there. You can also technically add like actions, right? If you have an action, like right clickable actions and things, you can have an action to navigate and then an action visibility rule on that action. Um, if you want the action visibility rule on that action to then only be displayed for certain users. I don't have I don't think I actually have one built out, but like you can set it so that on that dashboard, if you right click it, there's actions and stuff that the user could see or whatever in action, and you have visibility rules that block it from the user. But here, like this form is not built to actually demonstrate the flow run part, but like here you can see that form that I was messing with earlier today on here, because that's what that flow has. But again, you could have that flow running first to build that the link that you need and have it appear here, or not appear if it's a person that doesn't need to navigate somewhere. So that's stuff like that that you could use. So I think maybe hopefully that at least gives you a little bit more direction and ideas. All right. Last question, and we'll get to Smith's next. If anyone has further questions, we do have like 10 more minutes. So if you have anything else, feel free to type it up. But we'll go ahead and add Smitha now, and we'll talk your question. Your question is, how can I add a flow to a page? What access is needed to execute the flow? So I kind of already actually have that slightly built out here. So I'm just going to open that page up again. But it's pretty simple. On a page, there is a run flow button. Pretty sure it's just called run flow. It should appear in a second. But basically here, it just allows you to pick a flow. There you go, run flow. And here you can just have any of your flows that you've created can appear on this run flow button, and it'll appear on the on the dashboard to use, right? So in this one, I have some fetch entities testing flow that I want to run. Just simply dragging this on it, pick the button that you want to create. You can also select, there's a couple configurations. How does it look? Like this is set as a link, so it looks like a little link. But if you want, you can make it look like a button. So it just looks like similar to, submit buttons and things that we use a lot. You could even have it be like an image if you want, and pick the image to appear there if you want it to be like a clickable image. But yeah, so you have a flow that you can have it run and choose what the text is and everything like that to appear on the page. And then once you do that, that'll just be on the page for you. You don't have to change anything. So there's my button that'll run that flow if I click on it. From there, then you just need to make sure that the permissions are set up properly, right? Which I think was part of your question was, how do I actually, what access is needed to actually run this flow, right? So a user would have to be able to, use, open, and view the dashboard. So as long as they have access to the public folders to be able to do that, right? So they can see the dashboard and, use it and everything like that. And then they would just need access to wherever this flow is and, the items that are running that flow, they would need at least use access on those items. So they don't necessarily need view, right? Like if it's just an end user, they wouldn't even be able to see these flows and stuff because those are designer elements. And a regular all users person in decisions can't see those anyway. But if you don't, if you want to be very extra careful about what people have access to, then at the minimum they need is use permissions. So that way they can actually run the flow and anything that the flow is calling, right? Like if the flow has like a rule inside it or something like that, they would just need use permissions on all of those. The simplest way to do that is if you have a user, make sure that they have, permissions and access to the dashboard completely. If I have it, they can use open and view the dashboard so that they can actually open the dashboard, look at it, and click the buttons on it. And then if you don't need to be, if you're just giving like use permissions, then you can go with like the main folder. If you want to be extra careful, you can go into specific, specific flows or rules or other like elements within. But at the very least, for like the basic permissions, if you go to the most outward folder on the inside and make sure that they just have can use permissions. Um, open and view, they don't need to open the flows. They don't need to actually see the flows and stuff in their folder tree if they just want to be able to run the flow from the dashboard, so you don't have to add anything else. But use is the minimum permissions required for them to actually run the flow and use any of the elements that are inside it. So those are the minimum permissions they would need there. So at the very least, use permissions on whatever items are in like being accessed in that flow. Again, and that also includes, if there's a rule inside that flow, they'll need to be able to use that rule, stuff like that. But otherwise, yeah, just use permissions and then the dashboard that has the run flow on it.
Sure, that's very helpful. Thank you. But when they run the flow, will the flow show up to them because they don't have view, right? I basically don't want them to see that execution, like in debug
No,
mode or something.
like the same
Mhm.
thing, right? Like it's not they're not going to have the designer open, so it's not going to be in the debugger for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I don't know what this fetch entities thing was, something that I had built for someone a long time ago. Okay, this is just a fetch entities, and on results it'll show a pop-up. So
Mm-hmm.
they shouldn't see anything but this pop-up
Okay.
that maybe pops up, right? As long as
Okay.
it's set, I think it should hopefully be set. It might not pop up if I'm not the specified user. That's a pop-up thing. But yeah, that should be the only thing that would appear there if that's the flow that's running. If I run it, it does that thing, and there's my little pop-up. That's
Okay,
all they see.
great.
So I don't get a chance to look at everything that it fetched or all that other stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
just see the pop-up because that's what that flow was designed to show me, a pop-up. But
Okay.
otherwise I don't see anything else. So all they're simply
Okay,
doing is running the flow.
great. So as long as they have a can use option, we should be good. They don't need any
Hmm.
other like a designer or anything else.
Correct.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Hmm. All right. Just got a few minutes left. Anyone else? Last chance for questions or something I can take a look at real quick before we're done for now. All right. Then I think we will end it there. Thank you all for joining. Oops. Thank you all for joining. We'll continue with the rest of this week. This is what we have slated for the rest of this week for now. Me and Gregory leading the rest of this week. Some of these may change though, because I think we're kind of reorganizing some things for the week. So we may have different people leading, but we will still have lunch and learn the rest of this week. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great one, everybody.